Have you ever stopped to think about what a thought actually is? Every time you blink, recall a childhood memory, or feel a sudden rush of emotion, you probably assume it's just biology doing its thing. A cascade of hormones, maybe a cocktail of neurotransmitters. But what if I told you that you are, quite literally, a walking electrical grid? Imagine a sprawling metropolis at midnight, millions of streetlights and skyscrapers turning on and off in perfect, dizzying synchronization. That is your brain. And the power source? It's not what you might think.
It truly is a profound shift in perspective. For decades, the medical and scientific communities have taught us to view the human body almost exclusively as a biochemical machine. We think of food as fuel, digestion as a chemical furnace, and the brain as a complex computer made of organic matter. But the reality is far more cinematic. The human organism is fundamentally deeply electrical. Without a very specific set of microscopic metals, trace minerals like sodium, potassium, magnesium, and calcium, that entire metropolitan grid inside you goes completely dark.
That is such a wild concept to wrap your head around. We are talking about the literal hardware of human consciousness here. It's fascinating because when the average person hears the word electrolytes, they usually picture a neon-colored sports drink after a sweaty gym session. They definitely don't picture the literal spark of human thought. How do these tiny, seemingly mundane charged particles actually govern something as complex as our nervous system?
To really understand that, you have to look at one of the most elegant yet underappreciated mechanisms in all of biology, the sodium-potassium pump. Imagine every single cell in your body as a tiny, heavily guarded fortress. This pump acts as the tireless gatekeeper. Millions of times a second, it is actively shoving sodium ions out of the cell and pulling potassium ions in. Because these ions carry electrical charges, this continuous swapping creates a literal voltage across the cell membrane. It's not a metaphor. Your cells are microscopic batteries, and this pump is constantly charging them. If this process stops, neurons cannot fire. Communication ceases. Survival ends right there.
Wait, so let me get this straight. Every single thought I'm having right now, processing this conversation, formulating my next question, even the subtle movement of my hands as I speak, is entirely dependent on how well my brain is managing its microscopic electrical charges.
Precisely. And it happens through a phenomenon called an action potential. When a neuron decides to communicate, it doesn't just send a passive chemical postcard to its neighbor. It opens voltage-gated channels. Imagine floodgates suddenly swinging wide open. Sodium floods inward, potassium rushes outward, and a literal electrical spark races down the nerve fiber. That electrical choreography is the underlying language of your brain. Every emotion you feel, every brilliant idea you conjure up, every memory you store is written in the currency of moving ions.
That almost sounds like we are biological supercomputers running on mineral processors. If thought itself is just electrical choreography, what happens when the dancers step out of rhythm? I'm thinking about the modern lifestyle. We are constantly stressed, staring at screens, absorbing endless streams of information. How does all of that friction affect our internal electrical grid?
That right there is the hidden crisis of modern health. We are burning through our mineral reserves at an unprecedented rate, and most of us don't even realize it. Let's look at magnesium, for example. If sodium and potassium are the gas pedal and the spark plugs of your nervous system, magnesium is the braking system. It stabilizes neural activity. It regulates the NMDA receptors in the brain, essentially preventing your neurons from becoming dangerously overstimulated.
Which explains why so many people today feel completely wired but utterly exhausted at the same time. If we lack magnesium, our nervous system literally cannot hit the brakes. We're just redlining our biological engines day in and day out until they eventually burn out.
That is exactly the right analogy. When you are depleted of magnesium, you see a systemic cascade of issues: chronic muscle tension, crippling anxiety, fragmented sleep, and severe autonomic dysregulation. The modern diet is heavily processed, meaning it's packed with excessive refined sodium but severely lacking in the potassium and magnesium-rich whole foods our ancestors evolved eating. Add chronic psychological stress, lack of sleep, and daily sweating to the mix, and you are essentially bleeding out your electrical infrastructure.
It makes me rethink the entire concept of hydration too. The standard advice is always just to drink more water. But if we're pouring plain mineral dead water into a system that's already leaking its conductive metals, aren't we just diluting the battery acid, so to speak?
You've hit on one of the most pervasive misconceptions in modern wellness. Hydration is not simply about fluid volume. It is fundamentally about bioelectrical stability. Water cannot do its job without the correct electrolyte balance. These minerals dictate cellular conductivity. They literally tell the water where to go and how to get into the cells. Drinking gallons of empty water without replacing electrolytes is like laying down miles of expensive copper wire but forgetting to connect it to the power plant. You have the physical infrastructure, but absolutely no conductivity.
That is such a vivid image. It's chilling when you realize how fragile, yet incredibly resilient this system is. And this electrical web isn't confined to the brain, right? The heart operates on this exact same rhythmic principle.
Absolutely. The heart is arguably the most vital, relentless electrical organ we possess. Its entire rhythm, every single beat, depends on the precise, synchronized flow of calcium, potassium, and sodium across its cellular membranes. When we measure heart rate variability, or HRV, we are essentially looking at the flexibility and health of that electrical signaling. If your electrolytes are dysregulated, your brain and your heart literally fall out of sync. The nervous system and the cardiovascular system are not separate entities. They are a unified, continuous electrical network.
A unified electrical network. I love that phrasing. It elevates the human experience into this beautiful, rhythmic, electrical orchestration. But it also raises a deeper, almost philosophical question. If our moods, our heartbeats, and our very consciousness are so heavily dictated by trace minerals from the earth, how much of us is just the environment expressing itself through electricity? Are we just the universe experiencing itself through a perfectly balanced saline solution?
That is the exact frontier where advanced neuroscience meets philosophy. We like to think of human consciousness as this abstract, untouchable, ethereal concept. But the hard biological reality is that our highest cognitive functions, our sense of self, are tethered to the dirt of the earth, to the trace minerals we consume. As we move into the future of bioelectric medicine, the entire paradigm is shifting. We are moving away from just looking at biochemistry, and we are starting to monitor cellular voltage, hydration status, and neural signaling in real time.
So, the wearable technology of the near future won't just pat us on the back for taking 10,000 steps. It will actually look under the hood. It will tell us if our electrical ecosystem is fully optimized or if we are heading toward a systemic brownout. It's about interpreting the silent intelligence of our bodies rather than just tracking movement.
That is the ultimate goal. The future of health optimization lies in understanding that the body thinks in electricity. We are just beginning to decode that language. And once we fully understand how to tune that electrical instrument, the implications for human performance, longevity, and mental health are staggering.
It leaves you with a profound sense of awe, doesn't it? Deep inside you, right at this very second, billions of tiny charged particles are moving continuously through the dark corridors of your brain, across the chambers of your heart. They are creating your thoughts, your memories, your ability to love, to move, to simply exist.
It is the most beautiful, complex lightning storm in the known universe, and it is happening quietly inside every single one of us, every moment of our lives.
So the next time you take a sip of water or feel your heart race in a moment of excitement, remember, you are not just a biochemical machine. You are a living, breathing electrical city. And your lights are powered by the silent, ancient intelligence of minerals.